Welcome back, everybody, to another I Didn't Kill Those 4 People, I'm Innocent, Your Honor episode of Lockdown 23-1. That's right, today we're jumping back into an Ohio courtroom to witness Terrel Silver get sentenced for a quadruple murder that took place in Cleveland. And one of those victims out of the 4 happened to have been a young lady that was pregnant as well. So you can only imagine what kind of thick smoke's coming his way today. Not to mention what might be coming his way in the prison system. Them Ohio inmates can be very treacherous. Also, before I get into the video, I apologize. I got another request for you, my viewers. I just got done celebrating my twins' birthdays. Well, this month is very popular because now I'm going to be celebrating my beautiful wife's birthday. That's right, April's turned into a damn money pit. Not to mention it's tax season. Gotta give old Uncle Sam his due. But I will promise you this, got a little vlog coming your way for the celebrations of these birthdays. And there will be a golf cart in a very special place that we're visiting, somewhere that I said I'd never go. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple days. But anyways, let's all wish Brittany a beautiful happy birthday. And jump right into the video, ladies and gentlemen. If you're new to the channel and enjoy all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Alright, so first let me break down a little bit of why he's in here. It says Terrel Silver was convicted in a quadruple homicide case in Cleveland, Ohio. The quadruple homicide occurred sometime between September 7th and September 21st, 2019, when Terrel Silver shot and killed 4 individuals inside a residence in Cleveland. The victims were 18-year-old Jasmine Lawson, who happened to have been pregnant at the time, as well as 19-year-old Ayanna Quitman, 20-year-old DeJuan Willis, and 23-year-old Christopher Monroe. All 4 victims were found shot multiple times. Their bodies were discovered on September 21st, about 2 weeks after they were murdered. The investigation involved Cleveland Homicide, the FBI, and other agencies. Utilizing DNA and gun evidence, they linked Silver to the crime. Silver's trial included testimony from a DNA analyst and a former cellmate who claimed that Silver confessed to doing all these crimes. On September 16, 2024, he was found guilty on multiple charges, including 7 counts of aggravated murder. Silver maintains his innocence to this day. Well, there you have it, a little DNA, some gun evidence, and let us not forget about that inmate that jumped on his case and claimed that he confessed to doing all of this stuff while they're sitting in a cell opening up to each other, if I were to guess. Believe it or not, a lot of individuals, when they go into jail, they think they can trust everyone, especially their cellmate, and their loose lips end up sinking their own ship. But also, you got to keep in mind, man, inmates will make up anything to get a time cut. If they just know a little bit about your case here and there, they'll piece it all together however they want and make it look good for the courtroom, just so they can get out of their situation a lot faster. You know, so it's a toss-up, and I'm sure the prosecution and stuff like that have a hard time trying to determine if some of these little jailhouse informants are actually telling the truth or not, but they did in this situation. Not to mention, he's got past crimes of robbery and kidnapping and stuff like that. If you were to ask me, looking at all this from an ex-con's view, it was definitely probably a robbery gone bad. Probably kicked in the door, held up all 4 of them. Someone might have gave him a little kickback. He ended up killing them and said, look, I can't let nobody escape this room now. They done seen my face. They all got to go. Believe it or not, a lot of guys start freaking out like that, man. Don't want to leave no witnesses behind. Like I said, if I were to guess or bet a little money on it, that's probably the route that was taken. Now, with all that being said, let's jump into the courtroom and witness what kind of justice the courts have in store for him. Alright, here we go, and I'm not gonna lie, Bobby's stockpile of smoke canisters is gonna come in handy today.
Your Honor, first we'd like to start off by indicating to these families that we are sorry for their loss, that this is a tragedy. As the court's aware, Mr. Silver also has a family. He has a daughter, a mother, brothers, and he's a high school graduate. He graduated from Glenville, played football there. Your Honor, throughout this process, he has maintained his innocence. We would ask the court respectfully to appoint appellate counsel. We'd ask the court to order the transcript at the state's expense. We'd ask the court to recognize that he's been incarcerated now throughout this process and that he's indigent. We'd ask the court to suspend any court costs. Your Honor, in addition, we would ask the court respectfully to to run these counts concurrent and to give him an opportunity at parole. Parole would give an opportunity for him, while he's in prison, to have an incentive and hope moving forward. And that's definitely a consideration for the community and for this honorable court. Your Honor, in addition, we'd ask the court as a matter of housekeeping to note our objection to the Reagan-Tokes law, and thank you, Your Honor.
Alright, so that is the defendant's attorney speaking on his behalf. And he said that he's indigent, which means he has no money, so he wants to do all these things, appeals and stuff, at the state's cost. So that leads me to ask my next question. If he's so broke, how does he have such a good attorney? Because I'm here to tell you, anyone holding their pinkies out like this, speaking to the judge, has got more than a couple dozen wins under their belt. A really good attorney shows a little bit of physical affection to his defendant, just to show the people that he's not no monster. I'm here to tell you, those are signs of a great attorney. How do you get him if he's indigent? Who knows? Maybe some kind of program stepped up to fight on his behalf. But now we're going to hear from the defendant speak before the judge lays down the law.
Thank you. Mr. Silver, anything you'd like to add?
Yes. I would like to start by addressing the surviving family members of the victims. From the top to the bottom of my heart, I sincerely send my condolences. I can't and I will not apologize for these charges or allegations that I'm not responsible for. I did not kill those people or anyone else for that matter. But what I will apologize to you for is for everything you've all been through throughout this process. No parent should have to bury their child. I'm a father myself. I have an 8-year-old daughter. No family member and no friend should have to experience their loved ones being discovered in the state of decomposition that they were found in. I would also like to apologize for you all having to grieve this situation all over again. Due to the fact that all wounds had to be reopened, based on the fact that this prosecutor felt like he had the person responsible for these murders.
I'm surprised the family members are keeping their composure, because I don't think I would have been able to. You're there to see justice served for the death of your child. But the guy stands up and says, I can't apologize for none of this. I didn't do it. I think right then I probably would have snapped off in the courtroom, started saying all kinds of wild stuff. Right? I can only imagine it was an emotional roller coaster with this one. And once again, my condolences go out to all the victims' family and friends.
Furthermore, he has a duty to get a conviction. None of this was about justice. I truly don't feel none of this was about justice due to the fact that I'm not responsible for these crimes. Furthermore, due to you having a duty to get a conviction, I'm all for that, but what about getting a conviction right? This is a perfect example to demonstrate to you all that this is not about justice. First and foremost, I did not commit any of these crimes. Second, we've heard under oath testimony that this prosecutor, Mr. Kevin Leandro, broke the law to secure conviction under revised code 2921.04 by harassing, threatening victims/witnesses, coercing and intimidating them to come testify. I quote, on telling somebody I don't even know who I'm telling on. This is a great big misrepresentation of our judicial system. More specifically, according to the Ohio Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 8.4.
Mr. Silver,
Yes.
you're not an attorney, and
I don't need to be an attorney.
hold on. Here's the thing: you can make a statement, and you can also file an appeal. However, a subpoena that he enforced is a court order to appear. And a court order to appear, though the witness and yourself did not like the manner in which this person was brought to court, is within the bounds of the law.
That's right, Judge. Tighten up that fabricated propaganda. Some of y'all are probably falling for it, man. He's innocent. Who does he think he is, trying to pull the wool over our eyes?
So you're speaking for him?
No, what I'm saying is that is a court order. It is a court order for him to appear. So he's allowed to use the power of the police to go and pick up a witness pursuant to a court order. I'm not speaking for him, I am speaking for the power of the court of the subpoena, of the subpoena power of this court. And the other thing is that your attorneys also have the power of subpoena, the same as the state does. And I explained this to you in your constitutional rights. If they had wanted a witness here, every defendant in this country has the same right to use the power of the court to issue subpoenas and use that same power to bring witnesses to court. So whether you did it or he did it, it's appropriate and it's proper to bring people to court so that justice can be done. And whatever that justice outcome is what it is based upon the evidence and the credibility of the witnesses. Go ahead.
Wow, that judge spoke elegantly. Perfection, if you were to ask me, you know, no type of tone that gives off the impression that she's angry or, you know, getting annoyed by what he's saying. She's keeping it professional, checking her ends, and letting people know the truth. Now, I haven't done a deep dive into this case, and we all know that people get convicted for things that they didn't do, spend decades in prison, and get released later on down the road, get millions. You know, some DNA pops up and stuff like that. But in this situation, there is DNA locked in, like I already stated, and other things. So, in just my 2 cents, judging by his body language, he ain't giving me innocent vibes.
I am done.
So you do believe that we all have equal protection of the law?
I'm not answering your questions. I am
It's
listening.
constitutional, right?
I'm not answering your questions right now, sir. I'm listening to your impact statement, or your statement.
Okay.
That discombobulated everything he was doing. He don't even know where to pick up. But he's helping him. The attorney's helping him.
As I was stating, the Ohio Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule
There you go.
8.4,
Get him back on track.
prosecutors are advised and required to refrain from dishonesty, fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation pertaining to the rule or the overall judicial system itself. Sure, you can subpoena somebody to come to court, but texting and threatening them to come to court on something they should be willing to come tell, you shouldn't have to do. You shouldn't have to do that.
Mr. James, the witness that you're referring to, ended up crying on the stand.
Excuse me?
He was crying on the stand.
Who?
The witness that he had brought to court, had forced to bring to court. This person did not want to testify.
On
And
somebody he didn't know who he was testifying on.
he ended up telling it. However, he did it while he was crying. He was reluctant to do so. I can speculate as to why. Probably because he was in fear. But the credibility of the witnesses in this case, I can tell you, the jury found was profound. They deliberated for an hour and a half. The rest of the time it took them just to sign those jury verdicts. They believed the evidence in this case, and they asked themselves, do we believe the witnesses? And they went around and they said yes. Anybody listening to those 2 witnesses, in particular, I myself, because I also had to listen to the testimony for the court counts, those were credible witnesses, particularly Mr. Collins, who could not have known the level of detail less than 6 months after the murder, could not have been able to relay that level of detail that only the person committing the crime would have known. He would not have been able to deliver that to authorities without the person who had committed the crime knowing and being there.
That guy's testimony right there, knowing all those details of the situation without even being there, I believe is what she said. Yeah, that's going to lock everything in.
That is why the jury believed those witnesses.
Yup.
Anything else?
That's why they believe or you believe.
I also had to consider the counts. There was counts tried to the court, but that's what the jury relayed to me after this case. And I also had to consider the evidence in this case. And I was here and I sat next to these witnesses and I listened to them. And I'll just add on that Mr. Collins found what you had told him so depraved and such a burden on his conscience. First, he was scared for himself while in his cell, but one of the things that he said to the effect of the reasons why he wanted to come and testify and why he gave that information was because he couldn't go on living knowing that the devil was out there. That's how he felt about this. And that's what he testified to. His motivations for coming here were purely to make sure that justice was done and to make sure that nobody else would be harmed by somebody who could commit such an action, particularly that was weighing on him, that as a coincidence, he knew one of the victims and wanted to make sure that justice was sought. And for this type of crime, with this many victims and this many bullets that were fired, how many times somebody had to pull the trigger? You had to pull the trigger. And then to cover up your crime, although I do believe that you weren't possibly expecting to see the other two women, but to leave no witness.
Yep.
And knowing.
I agree.
Being able to see that Ms. Lawson was visibly pregnant, and the testimony that she mentioned that she shouted that she was pregnant, and you took her life anyway.
Wow.
Weighed so heavily on this witness.
Unreal.
And the jury
How?
found that
You
the
do such a
evidence
thing.
matched up, and the credibility of the witnesses only at the time, less than 6 months after the murder, the only person who could have been able to relay that type of information with that type of detail was the killer. And that killer was you. That is what the jury found, and that is what I'm sentencing on. Anything else before I impose sentence?
Now, the judge didn't clarify or not if that testimony came from the jailhouse informant, but she did say that there was no intentions, no kind of reward other than making sure that a monster was taken off of the streets. So maybe he got out of jail, went on with his life, and then, honestly, like the judge said, it just kept gnawing at him. But the person who testified knew all the details to the situation. And jailhouse informant or not, if they know that stuff, yeah, that testimony's 100% credible, and I'd agree to it too. The question remains, though, why the hell would he open his mouth at all about anything to anyone in that jail?
Respond to one thing, Judge. The defendant has filed a motion to dismiss. This court has read it. It's what he's been talking about. I'll just say this. I got that motion on Friday, and I immediately sent the entirety of all the text messages to his lawyers, and as you can see, they're not saying anything about them. There's nothing improper about any text message I sent to Reuben James or anybody else, and the record is out there. I think he's probably been reading from it here.
I don't have it.
Lawyers do. So that's it, Judge. Thank you.
Your Honor, we received that Sunday night, and that's going to be a decision and a judgment for another day.
Yeah.
We're here to address this.
I think he's addressing it because your client brought it up.
Yep.
Well, understood, but the manner in which he's addressing it is what I'm addressing, Your Honor.
Okay.
I just want the record to be clear.
Yep.
Yeah,
we know.
First, it's a pro se motion, and secondly, I'll probably narrative it. Right. So I have considered
Bobby,
facts
cue
in this
it.
case. I've also gone over your criminal record. Also, by coincidence, you were randomly assigned to this court. I had previously sentenced you to prison in two other cases. So I am familiar with your
She
criminal
already
history,
smoked him twice.
which is essentially guns and drugs. I've considered the purposes and principles of sentencing. You had for street disrespect, you had hunted down and had to go through multiple abandoned houses to hunt down these two young men. And you did it in a manner and at a time when, and the evidence bears this out, that they would be unlikely to defend themselves, meaning that they were found in a state of undress, blankets over them, in possibly a time when they were sleeping. You carried out the executions of the two men, and when you saw the two women there, you decided, I'm not going to leave any witnesses. And even knowing that one visibly was pregnant and also pleaded with you, stating that she was pregnant, you decided to take both of their lives in order to hide your crime. The
Wow.
sentence will be as follows.
Here we go.
For counts 1, 3, 7, 9, and 10. For the aggravated murder of Dejan Willis, Christopher Monroe, Ayanna Quitman, Jasmine Lawson, and Jasmine Lawson's unborn, I'm ordering a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. For count
Without
16,
the
on
possibility of
aggravated
parole.
burglary, 10 years in prison. Count 28, the attempted murder of Mr. Reuben James, that's 11 years in prison. For the having weapons under disability, as I previously stated, this is 2 additional times that you have used and had a gun. That's 36 months for each of those counts. For counts 1, 7, and 28, I am imposing the 54-month firearm specifications. Those will all run consecutive to one another. Except for count 16, all counts will run consecutive to one another. I am imposing consecutive sentences, finding that the consecutive prison terms are necessary to punish you and protect the public from future crime. You've already demonstrated through your criminal history that you live by the gun.
Smoke seems to be bothering him a bit.
Had multiple gun-related convictions, including drug convictions, robbery, and protect the public from future crime. The consecutive sentences are not disproportionate to the seriousness of your conduct and to the danger that you pose to the public. And I'm specifically saying your conduct. I can tell you that the jury focused solely on the evidence in this case and the credibility of the witnesses. They were very good about separating the images that they saw and focusing on the evidence. And my sentence here today is based solely on your conduct. The fact that they were found 2 weeks later in that state, while horrendous, is not a factor in my sentence. I'm finding that one or more of the that 2 or more of the offenses were part of 1 or more courses of conduct, and the harm caused is so great or unusual that no single prison term would adequately reflect the seriousness of the conduct. So you specifically went out and hunted these 2 young men. Then, to cover up your crimes, you killed 2 young women, one of which was pregnant. And then when somebody tried to call the police to let them know that the person that they thought was responsible for this crime, you then shot at him in order to again escape any responsibility for this. And then lastly, your criminal history demonstrates that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crime by you. The sentence then, adding that all up, the 13 years and 6 months of mandatory consecutive firearm specifications will be served prior and consecutive to 17 years to 22 and a half years on the underlying offenses, which is 30 years and 6 months to 36 years prior and consecutive to 5 terms of life without the possibility of parole.
5 terms of life. Wow.
I'm going to go over
That's a Daytona
because there's a
smoke.
life without the possibility of parole. I do not believe that I have to inform him of the SB 201. Is that accurate?
No objection.
Okay. The violent offender database.
No objection.
Okay, I'm going to skip that. Sir, you are ordered to be remanded. However, you will not be sent to Lorraine Correctional at this time because you do have another pending case that we do need to resolve.
But that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode of the day. And you know, a lot of people are probably wondering, why do you do the girls like that? They might have seen his face, but they probably wouldn't have been able to tell who he was. Well, maybe they did. Maybe he recognized him from somewhere. Not to mention, you got to keep in mind, a lot of ex-cons has been in the prison system a couple times. Some of them will do anything to never go back. And that means getting rid of every single witness in the room. And I don't know if this guy's even started the appeal process or nothing, but I'm going to try to keep a close eye on it. If there's any other updates, I'll be sure to bring them your way. And just a future piece of tidbit information, in case you ever get locked up, man, don't speak about your case to nobody. Unless it's something real petty, you know, you're in like the misdemeanor block, you can say whatever. Ain't no detectives in there trying to get some months out of you. But them big F-bomb felonies, keep your mouth shut. There's an inmate there waiting to jump on your case. Help send you right to Smokeville. As always, though, until the next time, y'all be easy, be safe, and more importantly than anything, stay free.